There's some days that I need this place more than it needs me. So if you have something to preach about this morning, you can come on up. Brother Chris, I've been redeemed. Why would we ever go put the chains back on one? Why would we ever go back to bondage? Brother Anthony, would you pray for us this morning? You may be seated. I don't even know if I'm supposed to preach this message now. I feel like I'm going to mess something up or something. I don't know. But I know that, man, this whole thing we've been studying on Wednesday nights working me over, man. It's this whole idea of having God search us and search our hearts and see if there's anything that's not like it needs to be there. He wants to change, and He has a way of meddling in our business, you know. God has a way of meddling and messing with us. And so it's awesome. Oscar, you're a state champion. You can do anything, right? So if I can't do this, and you come over and take up and take over for me, huh? You look good. You'd look better than me up here, I'm sure. I would ask Corey, but Corey'd start talking about things like turkey hunting and stuff, and we don't need that right now. I don't know. I guess the only thing I can relate this story to is maybe mushroom hunting. I don't know. 2 Kings 6:11 through 23. I just feel, man, my heart has been heavy here recently, and I guess I'm not satisfied. Does God ever satisfy us? Does He satisfies us, but do we ever get to the point where I'm good, God, you don't need to give me any more. I'm good. I may be satisfied, but I'm not content. You know, I want God to do things that only God can do. You know, how many times do we see things that happen, and it's through the power of human beings, and we're pretty powerful lot. I mean, we can get our heads together and we can do some crazy cool stuff. You know, we can put people on the moon or whatever, but I want to see God power in lives, and not some freak show. I'm talking about people having their lives changed forever. You know what I mean? Mandy, are you with me? Do you like that? Are you with me? Do you understand that? I just want that. I want to see it. I want to see God's power revealed in such a way that the community and the world we live in, people are affected by it, like they're moved, and it changes them in such a way that they have hope. So my message today is talking about the opposition, and so maybe this is what it's all about. I don't know, but the opposition and who we're dealing with. And I don't want this to be a negative message, because it's not. It's a good message, and I think I need to hear it maybe more than you guys. So here's another one of those Kevin sermons for Kevin, and if you want to join in and get something out of it, you can take your pick on it. But it's in 2 Kings chapter 6. And there was this king of Aram, and he was always wanting to make war against the Israelites. He was always wanting to go down. And y'all have probably heard this story before, and it's fun. It's kind of a funny story, actually, when you get to thinking about it. Those old prophets, I bet they were a mess. You know, when God called them, I bet they were ornery, and after he called them, they were still ornery, but then they were just really godly. I think they were kind of funny guys and ornery. But there's this guy, king of Aram, and he kept on attacking the Israelite army. But God would tell this old prophet Elisha, said he would tell him where they were going to be, and they would go, okay, hey, don't go there, because that's where they're waiting for you. And so they would go around. It was like, well, he got mad about it, really mad, and because every time he'd go to attack them, they weren't, they knew that they were going to be ambushed there, and so he couldn't ever get the drop on them. And that's why I said it's kind of like mushroom hunting. Like, I would like to know where Todd hunts all of his mushrooms. So I really would like Sierra coming to church here, because I have a feeling that Sierra is probably a lot better person than him. So I'm going to try to, if I can get really close to Sierra, then Sierra will be like going, yeah, I think my dad hunts mushrooms in that hollow over there, or that holler, as you would say around here. And then, I think it would be kind of funny to go and pick mushrooms, and then Todd show up the next day going to go pick mushrooms, and they're gone. And then he's like, and then I think that would be funny, and take pictures of them and send them. So I think that would be good stuff. It's funny how mushrooms, and I really don't even like mushrooms, but it's almost like they're all right. Like, I can take one mess of them, but it's literally just grease and batter. I mean, you can throw some fried chicken in the skillet, and you got about the same thing. But anyways, it's not like I live and die to eat mushrooms, but it's fun to mess with people about their spots. That's more fun than eating the mushroom to me. So, but anyway, this king, he was always wanting to go attack the Israelites, and God would tell Elisha and say, hey, they're there, and he would go tell the army, and he'd go, don't go that way, because that's where they're at, and they would always skirt him. And then starting with verse 11, this enraged the king of Aram. So you think about me enraging Todd for finding these mushrooms. That would be funny, see? But this enraged the king of Aram. He summoned his officers and demanded of them, tell me which of us is on the side of Israel. Like, he's like, who's the traitor? And I'm hoping Sierra is that person for me. So Sierra, if you're not busy after church, we could maybe take you out to eat lunch or something. Verse 12, none of us, my lord the king, said the officers, but Elisha, the prophet who is in Israel, tells the king of Israel, the very words you speak in your bedroom. That's kind of spooky. And he goes, go find out where he is, the king ordered, so I can go send men and capture him. The report came back, he is in Dothan. Then he sent horses, and so we're talking about, I'm sure it's this old long-bearded prophet, this old man, and listen to what the king does. Then he sent horses and chariots and a strong force there. They went by night and surrounded the city. They're pretty serious about getting this guy. When the servant of the man of God got up, this is a really fun verse here, went out early the next morning. I can just see this young dude going out, and, he gets up out of bed, and he has to go to the bathroom probably, and he's like whistling and half asleep, and he looks up, and he sees... And he sees an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. And he goes, oh no, my lord, what shall we do? The servant asked. And Elisha said, don't be afraid, the prophet answered. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them. And Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and he saw. Now, this is good stuff right here. This is some heavy-duty stuff right here. He looked and he saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. That's good stuff right there. There's more with us than be with them. We're on the winning side. With banners unfurled, we'll tell the whole world that Jesus is captain and guide. We have nothing to fear. As the enemy came down toward him, Elisha prayed to the Lord, "Strike this army with blindness." So he struck them with blindness as Elisha had asked. Elisha told them, "This is not the road and this is not the city. Follow me and I will lead you to the man you are looking for." And he led them to Samaria. So this kind of blindness, it wasn't a blindness that they couldn't see. I think it was a blindness to that they just wasn't thinking right, because they were able to follow him. And now I don't have proof of that. Wasn't there. They may have been just like going, "Okay, I'll go anywhere I can't see." So it might have been that. I don't know. After they entered the city, Elisha said, "Lord, open the eyes of these men so they can see." Then the Lord opened their eyes, and they looked, and they were inside Samaria. When the king of Israel, this is where it gets really good. This is the next three verses. We're going to focus on this. I don't want to get too far ahead. But when the king of Israel saw them, he asked Elisha, "Shall I kill him, my father? Shall I kill him?" "Do not kill them," he answered. "Would you kill those you have captured with your own sword or bow? Set food and water before them so that they may eat and drink and then go back to their master." So he prepared a great feast for them. And after they had finished eating and drinking, he sent them away, and they returned to their master. So the bands of Aram stopped raiding Israel's territory. So many of us have heard this story, and there's been so many messages preached on this. I heard Stephen Furtick preach one of the most awesome messages on this passage I've ever heard. I've preached on it before. I preached on it in another church in our district several years back, and they've never asked me to come back. Those were good times. So this is a pretty popular Bible story that can be used for many good messages. You know, the "Don't be afraid," "Lord, open our eyes," "There's more with us and be with them," "God's army," all these things. And all of those are solid truths, and they're wrapped in this one package of this story. All these truths. But I want to focus on verses 22 and 23, and it is, "Do not kill them." And he said, "Set food and water before them so that they may eat and drink and then go back to their master." So they prepared a feast. They prepared a feast for their enemy. They prepared a feast for them. And after that, they stopped raiding their territory. So the title of our message is "The Opposition." Here we see an enemy army that is literally in the middle of God's camp. Whatever they would have done to those guys, they could have justified it. They could have slaughtered every single one of those guys. The king of Israel is jumping for joy. You know, should I kill him? Should I kill him? Can I kill him? Can I? But Elisha tells him quite the opposite. He wants to give them what they probably don't expect, nor do they deserve. Give them what they didn't earn. Give them not only grace, they could have killed him. Give them not only grace, but also meet their needs. I don't even know how to really talk about that. We're all about grace. But he not only saved them, he not only spared them, he not only gave them grace, he met their needs. It wasn't about them any longer. It wasn't about him any longer. It's about these people, these enemies. Elisha had an understanding of the situation. There's three things I want to talk about with this. That's perfect. Three-point sermon, and we're going to make it quick. First of all, Elisha knew the opposition. My question to you is, do you know your opposition? Do you know who your opponent is? Ephesians 6:12 says, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realm. So that tells me if I have a conflict with somebody, if me and Mandy are on knockdown, drag-out terms, Mandy is probably not my enemy. So I want you to start thinking about people in your life right now, people in your sphere, people that's in your lives, and are situations in your lives right now that are getting you down. I want you to start thinking about the people and the things in your life right now that are messing with you. And now I want you to transfer the problem you have with that situation or with that person. I want you to remove it off of them, and I want you to put it on Satan. Because this is what it's talking about right here. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood. My fight is not against the people that are fighting against me. As a child of God, we have to understand that our battle is a lot bigger than our little trivial battles that we have to mess with on earth. I guarantee you there's always a reason for the things that happen in our lives. And when we short-sight that, when we look at it at face value, man, we take all the bigness of God out of the picture. We start making things that are nothing to God into something earthly big to us, and we miss the whole point of it. So when we are being attacked, I have a question. Who is leading the charge against us? Our world, when I was studying this, I'd never thought about this, and I've heard this talked about so many times. Our world, most of the time, seems to be in direct conflict with who we are. As a child of God, the world a lot of times seems in direct conflict with what I think is right. You think about the problems you have, I guarantee you most time, if it's with people or a situation, it is something where you think there is something not right. They've done something to me. There's a problem with them, not with me. I see it as a mess in their behalf, and I'm right where I'm at because they're wrong, because they're not Christians. They don't see it the right way. Here's the thing. When we start realizing who our real battle is, then we start realizing what the real problem is. In most battles, it takes an opposing sides to fight. As a follower of Christ, we know we are in a conflict. And this is the part that kind of messed with me a little bit. We know we are in a conflict. But here's one thing I've never thought of. I wonder if the world that we are in conflict with even realizes that they're in a conflict with us. They have no idea, I don't think. The world does life. And I want you to listen to this. And I've never thought about this, but I guess I did, but not to this extent. The world does life. They are sinners. People don't know Jesus Christ
They're walking in sin. Therefore, they are sinners. And, well, just let me finish. When they are sinners, they act like sinners. They think like sinners. They respond like sinners. They live like sinners. Because why? Because they're sinners. If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, swims like a duck, and looks like a duck, it's not a cardinal. It's a duck. Let me give you a crazy thought. Sinners, or the world that we are in opposition with, are sinners, and most will act accordingly. I don't believe that most people that are in the world that do not have a relationship with Jesus Christ, I don't believe that they get up in the morning and say to themselves, I'm going to go find some follower of Christ to persecute today. I've met some really good non-Christian people. Some I would rather be around than people that call themselves Christians. I don't think that they even know maybe that there's a conflict. They just go and do life the way that they do life. They have a freedom in their sinfulness to be what they choose to be. So when I see that now, and I'm in conflict with this world. No, I'm not. I'm not. This world that drives me crazy, this world that does stuff that's inappropriate, this world that makes me, being a Christian, difficult, it's not these people, it's their source. The issue is that they have a master, someone that is leading the charge in their lives, someone that is calling the shots, someone who can get them to live in opposition with the child of God. It is Satan in their lives that's calling the shots, and guess what? They're just doing life. Now let me spin this a little differently. Let me go one step further. You know what can be worse than a sinner? Is a distracted saint. Sink that in. Just let that churn a little bit. What can be worse than an out-and-out sinner is a distracted saint. Whether you're dealing with a sinner, a distracted saint, it doesn't matter. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. See, sometimes I think we give sinners a pass before we give the distracted saint a pass. Monica can walk into this church 15 times and she's like, hey, what's going on? And on the 16th time, she's just had a flat tire. Oscar made her mad and she had to whip Blaine on the way to church. And then she comes in and I go, hey, Monica, could you? I don't have time. Whoa, Monica must have lost Jesus somewhere. But that, I don't give her grace. Who's our battle really with? And see, I never really thought about this. But who's our battle really with? I've read that whole thing about we wrestle not against flesh and blood. But who's it really with? And how does that now, if our battle is not with the outside world, okay, so that changes everything. That's now then, I have to change my approach. I have to change my approach. All of a sudden, I have to start seeing those people as human beings that need a Savior and not as somebody that's trying to tear me down and knock my Jesus off the cross. Totally different outlook. Elisha understood his opponent. He understood what they were doing. They're acting like any country like them would probably act. Instead of taking their lives, what does he do? He recognizes them for who they are. He recognizes them as playing on Satan's team. And we don't really like to talk about Satan and the devil because we would rather look at him as a boogeyman. But I promise you, he's for real. And he goes to and fro seeking whom he may devour. Bottom line, he is our mortal enemy of the child of God. It's not the fifth grader that I've had mouth off to me for the 32nd time in second hour. He needs his tail whipped. I understand that. It doesn't have to be a person. It can be a situation. It can be an environmental thing. And we fight against it and we lash against it. And man, we're missing it by a mile because the one that we're supposed to be fighting, we're not fighting because we never get on our knees and talk to the one that actually can do something about it. Elisha recognized his opponent. And this is where it really gets good. And man, God, he had to give this. Like, the next thing, I want you to listen to this. Elisha recognized the opponent, but Elisha, I believe, wanted the opposition. Listen to this. Elisha wanted the opposition to recognize who was on his side. Okay, that just changed the whole deal right there. That changed the entire battle. That changed all the circumstances. That changes everything. That changes who I am as a human being right now. When I battle, is it to battle to suppress the opposition, or is it a battle for them to see my leader? That's not a win-lose situation. I win, you lose. It is, I become invisible, and you see my God, and you win. See, I got to be honest with you, I never thought about it this way. I've never thought about it this way, really, ever. I want to know my opposition, but I want my opposition to recognize who I'm fighting for. Satan already knows who it is, but the people, they don't know. How will you know if you don't tell them? And how will you tell them if you don't go? And who will go if you won't be sent? When I go, it's like I take my gloves off and I go, okay, we're not going to fight the way you're used to fighting, because that's the way the world fights. I don't fight that way anymore. My weapons are not carnal. You know what carnal is? They're not worldly. The weapons of my warfare are not carnal, but they are powerful. They're capable of pulling down strongholds. See, me doing fisticuffs, that won't pull down a stronghold. You know what that does? That builds strongholds. That repulses people. No one wants to be on the losing side. We already won. When Jesus came up out of that grave, it's done. We won. The war's still just within us. We're the only ones fighting the war. Jesus Christ already won the thing. We have these little battles He won. Death, hell, Satan, the grave, they all got their tail whipped. So when I go to war now, how do I go to war? Do I go to win for me and what I think is right? Or do I go to just become invisible and let people see who my captain and guide really is? When the world's fate is in your hands, listen to this. When the world's fate is in your hands, this army's in the middle of their city. They can demolish them. Their fate was in their hands. When the world's fate, when you have a chance to take someone down, your opponent, you have a chance to take them down. Let me ask you a question. Do they recognize who is calling the shots in your life in that moment? When the world's fate, when you have a chance to strike a blow, does the person that you're striking the blow against, does the situation that you're going to conquer, do they see who you are fighting for? Do they see who is calling the shots in your life? I've told this story before. On Easter Sunday, there was a guy, and it's kind of cool that he's here because a lot of you have never heard this story, but there was a guy here Easter Sunday that come in and he had the orange jacket on. His name was Cliff. Cliff's been in and out of prison. Cliff's a rough dude. He worked with me at the glass shop. If I only owned the glass shop just so I could tell Cliff about Jesus, that was a year and a half off my life that was well spent. Cliff was a hot mess. Drugs, anything, alcohol, mess. Prison, mess. One day, I had this case of glass, and it's expensive, and I'm a small business owner, and I don't have a lot of money. And this case of glass was a chunk of change, and they delivered it, and they drop it in the middle of the floor, and you have to prop it back because glass is vertical. When it's standing, it will fall. I had a whole case of glass, probably 80 sheets of glass. I don't know how many was in it for sure. And they drop it in the floor, and it's in this crate, and it's all sitting there. And before we can do anything with it, we have to tilt it back so stuff don't fall on the floor. He goes over and cuts the bands. Front of the deal falls off, and all the glass falls out of the case onto the floor. When glass falls on the concrete floor, it's usually a problem. I literally think, I'm positive every sheet broke. I went and did some heavy drinking that day. I'm not kidding. I went to Brahms and I got like a chocolate chip shake and I had to cool off. I was really irritated. So I went deep and heavy that day. And I go back to the shop and Cliff's not there and he'd left too. And I started asking around, and I called him, and I said, Cliff, where you at? And he goes, I'm at home drinking a beer. He went heavy, too. And I said, dude, you got a mess to clean up here. You need to come cleaned up. And I could have fired him. I know. I needed him. He's a decent worker. I mean, he's a good guy. Just a mess. And I walked out,
and I was in the shop after he got it cleaned up, and I said, I want to talk to you. And I said, I want to tell you about grace. This is grace. I'm not going to fire you. From that moment, I believe Cliff knew who was calling the shots in my life. The power that I had every right to say, I'm garnishing your wages, I'm sending you home, everything. You know what I asked for Cliff to do? I said, Cliff, I just want you to respect me as the boss. I think Cliff probably just got out of jail not too long ago, from according to his daughter. Where does he come? He comes and sits by me at church. When we blow out our birthday candles, do we wish for an opportunity to burn someone's barn down or change their flat tire? What would happen if we started praying that God would allow some really difficult things to happen in the lives of those who we are in conflict with, just so that we can help them out? Think about the person that irritates you the most. Think about them having a flat tire on a rainy day, and think about you getting out and changing their flat tire. Didn't that make you feel good? Did that make you feel good? God, allow things to happen in their lives that I can show up and I can be God to them. I believe those are the moments when God opens their eyes at what their lives of sin have been opposing. Can I tell you something? They don't know that they're fighting a war. But when we show them unconditional love, all of a sudden, they realize that they are in conflict with God Almighty. Then their lives change, because now they have to do something with that. It's not by me. It's not you. We're not the ones that opens their eyes. Remember, Elisha said, God opened his eyes. It's not us that opens people's eyes. It's God that loves all without exception. Romans 12:17-21 says this: do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, it is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, listen to what Elisha did. Listen to this. If your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. That's kind of funny to think I gave you a drink and now you're melting down. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Can we kill him? Elijah, can I kill him? No. No, let's let them see God through us. Let's meet their needs. Let's feed them. And they didn't just feed them. Did you notice that? They prepared a what? A feast. God's love is extravagant. He didn't just feed them. He loved them extravagantly and said, you've been a pain in my rear so much, I'm going to give you a feast. If you ever want to do that, I like ham. I love ham. Okay, so if you're in conflict and you want to invite me over, I'll take ham. Or elk steak, or moose steak, if you have moose. Mushrooms.
And then the last thing, here's the crazy part, okay, about this whole thing. At the very end of this whole thing, the final thing, Elisha sent them back to their master. You go, whoa, 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 Kevin. We want them to change. We don't want them to go back to Satan. We don't want them to be led by this hideous being that is destroying their lives. Elisha let them go back to their master. I want you to listen to this real carefully. And we were talking about this morning in there. We seldom can change someone's circumstances. We may minister to somebody in the world. We usually don't get to change their circumstances. If they live in a certain house or a certain part, or they have certain parents, or they have these things in their lives, we usually don't get to change all their circumstances. And that's overwhelming to me, because I want someone to get saved, and then I want to be able to take them out of their environment and send them into something where it becomes easy for them to follow Christ. We usually don't get to do that. When we share Christ's love with someone, I don't change their circumstance. But here's my job, and I've never thought about this before, okay? So we're going to do an enemy's tactic on them, okay? What does Satan make us do with Christ? Doubt him? Have us believe our lies about who we are? Listen to this. Our job may be just to make them doubt their circumstance. Make them doubt their leader. Make them doubt who they are. Make them doubt themselves. Make them doubt what they believe is true. Make them doubt their life. If you get your opponent to doubt, Oscar, have you ever wrestled someone that you were way better than them, and they knew you were better, and you knew you were better? Like both of you knew that you were going to win? Have you ever wrestled anyone like that? Were they defeated before they ever blew the whistle? You can tell it. If you can get your opponent to doubt what they are doing, then the battle is basically over. How often does Satan, who is known as the accuser of the brethren, lie to us and tries to get us to doubt our beliefs and circumstances? Its effectiveness is off the charts. The results are staggering. How often do we believe the lies that Satan feeds us? We listen to the junk, and instead of looking up, this is what our head, man, I didn't do well there, jeez. We start kicking ourselves. Well, let's reverse that strategy. So why can't we do the same with the truth? We must show the world a way out of their circumstances, or a way to change their circumstances by making them doubt the goodness of their circumstances. Do you realize that the world really enjoys being who they are? It's when they start doubting that that's good that they start looking for something better. If they don't know, they just get up and do life. They roll out of bed just like you and me, and they go do life, but they're doing it on a level that is ugly and distorted and lied to. They're a mess in it, and they don't even know it. They just react and respond and do the things that sinners do. When they doubt that that is right, when you know better, you do better. I never thought about it this way. It works. Satan uses it against us all the time. Let's switch it. Let's know who we're dealing with first. Let them see who's our captain. And then let's get them to doubt what they think is good. When someone sees hope and a future through God, that, I believe, is when God's voice has a chance to be heard. In the case of Elisha, the last line of verse 23 says that Israel stopped being raided by that army. They never raided them anymore. Or they stopped being raided by them. Who knows? Did that whole army become followers of God? I don't know. But something changed. Something changed. They didn't have an enemy anymore in Israel. And isn't that what we want? We don't want the enemy messing with us. We don't want to be in conflict with the world. So the next time you're in a conflict, think about that. Who am I dealing with? Do they know who I'm with? And can I make them doubt their beliefs? Can I make them doubt their circumstance? Can I help them see that there's something better? Father God, I love you so much. Thank you for being here today. I love you so much, and I get a kick out of listening to the stories about you and the way you handle situations and how you use other people to be great guidelines for us. God, our battle isn't against the people that we see every day. Our battle's against Satan. But God, you've already defeated him. You've already sent him packing. God, only when we want to pick the chains up and put them back on does he have a right to our lives. God, help us not to do that. Help us to stay locked into you. Help us to have a hunger and thirst for righteousness and you. Help us to want you more than anything else. Help us to love you and your ways, and help us to love others that don't know you so much that we'll do whatever it takes to show them to you. I love you, God. Thanks for loving us. In your amazing and great name I pray. Amen. You are dismissed. Have a fantastic day. I love you guys. It's supposed to be warmer this week. If it gets cold again, I don't know what to tell you. I guess winter's just going to last forever. So